Lara Yeretsian is here. She is in Southern California. She's a criminal defense attorney. And Philip Dubé is here. He is a public defender there, but appearing in his own behalf, not as an official public defender for L.A. So we've got Southern California well represented here. Lara, give me your take on this rebuttal case. We've talked about whether it was really necessary. If you look at the way the case is unfolded for this jury, is it just a situation where maybe the Depp team is saying, we got time to burn, let's use it? What's your take on the rebuttal?
Well, the Depp team has another 15 hours, from what I understood, and why not use it, especially in light of some of the witnesses that Amber's team put on, including the psychiatrist, also someone that they had recently, one of the last witnesses, someone from the entertainment industry who was a pretty strong witness. So it does make sense for them to put on their rebuttal witnesses to basically cast doubt on their testimony and to I guess put the nail in the coffin for Amber's case. So I think it's a great idea. And up until now, I was just watching a little bit of what the psychiatrist was saying. It's going to be helpful. He seemed to be a more even keel, calmer, less aggressive witness compared to Dr. Spiegel. And I'm thinking that he's going to do pretty well for Johnny Depp's team.
What do you leave this jury to think about?
They have to think about who they believe. This is a lot of he said, she said, even though there are a number of witnesses that maybe corroborate or don't corroborate, and really focus on who is it that they believe. Is it Amber Heard? Was she credible? Was she overly dramatizing here? She had a lot of stories. There were some issues. We're going to wait to see now Kate Moss coming in and testifying, and maybe I expect, obviously, that she's going to say what she claimed never really happened. At least Johnny Depp didn't do it, didn't push her down the stairs. So that's what I would say. Use your common sense and what you saw during this trial and decide who do you really believe.
And I think you're right about Kate Moss, because she could do damage to Amber Heard. So thank you, guys.
Damage.
Lara Yeretsian, thank you so much. It's very interesting, and I want to talk to Lara about this and Philip Dubé, both here to talk about this case from their perspectives out in Southern California. My thought was, when they were talking about the fact that on that redirect, that Johnny Depp was not examined, and that there were attempts to prevent his examination, but we know that Amber Heard was in fact examined. I don't know if the jury understands why that would be. Lara, what do you think? Is it important that the jury understand why one of these litigants was examined, and therefore the psychological opinion might be more valid than the one who wasn't examined and was prohibited from being examined?
Well, I mean, at this point, even before I even answer that question, you were talking about these two psychiatrists and their opposing testimony. And one thing that really comes to mind is, do we even need to have an expert get up and say that whatever Dr. Spiegel said is highly credible? Even a jury is going to know if this psychiatrist did not, in fact, examine or evaluate Depp, his opinion is not going to have the same weight as a psychiatrist who had, in fact, evaluated and interviewed Ms. Heard. And there's not even a comparison. And you don't even need an expert to tell you that. But having an expert helps more, and it makes it clearer to the jury. But does the jury need to understand why one was examined and the other was not? I think the lawyers are kind of, with their questions, making it pretty clear that the judge allowed one but didn't allow the other. And my understanding is this was basically the impact, the emotional issues were part of the damages that Amber Heard had claimed.
Yeah, she definitely
but Johnny Depp never made that claim.
Issue. So this may be a good thing for this jury that they were spared some of this extraneous material. But what do you think about this stuff in terms of potential for appeal?
I mean, obviously the court in this case made her decision. I'm not really sure what the Virginia law is. I mean, it could be very different from California, but I don't think they're going to get much out of it. A lot of it is there was so much already that they were allowed to present. I'm sure most of this objections and the rulings by the judge will stand. They will be agreed on by the Court of Appeal. I don't think there's going to be any issues, and I don't expect the case being overturned based on those particular motions.
Yeah, the judge might have some instruction on how to limit, your waste of time, if that's what they see it as. But they would never, Lara, they would never say, here's when you're done. And if you're not done, I will yank that witness off the stand. Because when I say you're done, you're done. It could be a problem. Give Philip some credit on that. It could be.
Could be a problem. And I've never seen it either. I've never seen a judge say, you've got 14 hours or 15 hours, and if you're not done, that's it. You can't even ask one more question of the jury. I have seen in federal cases, I've seen judges who have asked the two sides, for example, hey, how many witnesses do you have? How many days do you think this is going to be? And the prosecutor said 15 days, and then, he turns to the defense, and what do you think? How many witnesses are you going to have? And he says, after he hears everybody else, he says, you've got a day and a half to put on your entire case to the prosecution. Just completely cuts it. But I've never seen anyone say you've got 15 hours, 16 hours, 60 hours, and they've got the hour clock. So that in itself is a little something that we've never seen. I've never seen, at least. And I agree with Mr. Dubé. I've seen it where judges have limited our time on voir dire. Or have inquired, for example, for closing, or even if you're in the middle of a testimony or a cross, you've been on this for some time, move on to the next question, things like that. But that's about it.
We heard, Lara, you remind me if I'm wrong here, but Johnny Depp himself said that happened contemporaneous with the injury, and he didn't want it to be, he was kind of protecting Amber at that time. That's how I recall. What do you remember about that, Lara?
Right. That's what I remember too, and it's not the first time we've heard that. We've seen spouses cover for each other. I've had cases where the cops will show up and all sorts of things have happened, a beating, a punch, and all, and whether it be the wife or the husband, suddenly they deny it. They don't want to get the other spouse in trouble. Sometimes some of them will get arrested because they've kept their mouth shut while the other one talks. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and his description, believable. I think his description was actually pretty good. I think he said he smashed it in a door or something. That made perfect sense with the physical evidence of the injury. But it seems very interesting to me, Lara, let me start with you, that this analysis of damages really hinges on what the court determines is or isn't defamatory per se.
Agreed, but at the same time, you're just telling us that we don't really know what the court has decided, and that's something that we're going to find out possibly after a verdict of one way or the other. So it is interesting, and that's a big deal. It makes a huge difference as far as what the damages are going to be. So there's a big question mark here for all of us to find out.
What do you think about that?